solutions architecting, I feel like, is negotiating that balance in the middle between we want it to work or we want it to do X, but it needs to be safe, or it needs to have this in it. It's about, hey, here's our problem. We need to find a solution, and you are the person that is going to put on whatever hat you have to put on to make that solution happen, whether it's PM work or coding or engineering or speaking with C-suite. It's all of those things lumped in.
I'm Jeff. I'm from the area, born and raised in Idaho. Kind of been around technology my entire life. I did IT, at the beginning of my career. I went to Meridian Technical Charter High School. I don't know if you're familiar with the area. That's
Learning it.
a local high school, like a charter school in Meridian. I got into more development 5 or so, maybe like 7 years ago now. Worked as an engineer here and kind of quickly started doing more like architecture work. I don't know if I've really done a lot of solutions architecting. I think, as we've kind of talked already, a lot of things kind of fall under the umbrella. So I'm definitely opinionated on that stuff. I know a little bit about it. But I've worked a lot as an engineer. I've worked as like a people manager. I've worked as like a projects manager. I've done lots of different things. As far as like, I've done a little bit of actual like architecting, software and, doing the, cloud architecture and things like that. But usually I'm with other people that may be better at some of those specific things than I've been. So, yeah, I think that's a little bit about me. Been at In-Time Tech for 5 or so years. Right now, I'm working at a Fortune 500 company, doing embedded work in C. And then I'm a product owner on that, and I'm also a part-time engineer on that project.
Very nice. So yeah, a lot of different hats, it sounds like you've worn over the years.
Yep.
So about myself, I come from a bit of a unique background, kind of like yourself as well. I got into technology at a young age. I was that kid that was 9 years old, taking apart computers and building computers at 9, and got into my first web development and graphic design job when I was a teenager. And then I went into law enforcement in Arizona. So I was born and raised in Lake Havasu, and became a deputy sheriff in Western Arizona, and did that for a number of years, and continued to kind of keep my tech roots. Even when I was at those departments, I felt like I was doing a lot of that technical fixer work. So you figure when you're on night shift and there's no IT guy working at 2 a.m. in the middle of a rural county, and VPNs go down on the mobile laptops, I'm kind of the guy that was trying to fix those.
Sure.
And was a police officer in Northern Arizona for another couple of years there, and kind of same thing with tech. And decided I wanted to get back to being in technology again full time. And I transitioned out to a Fortune 500 company in the GovTech space, and was doing a lot of product support and implementations. And then kind of from there, I transitioned out to semiconductor manufacturing. So I moved up with a remote position up here to Boise, and got hired at a Fortune 500 company here in semiconductor manufacturing. And I was an IT operations analyst there. And as you said, you kind of wear a lot of different hats. Even if your title is one thing at a company, you end up doing 20 different roles sometimes. So on top of being the IT analyst for, 5 locations, I feel like I did a lot of solutions architect work where, executives have a problem and our goal is find the solution for it, whether that's writing a PowerShell script or engineering some solution, or doing almost more project management work of putting heads together of who needs to be in a call.
Yeah, Definitely. I think that's when I think of like what it means to be a solutions architect and trying to define the term for the industry. First of all, it's impossible. Like
Right.
every organization you go to is gonna be different. Some don't have it. Some, like larger organizations, might be like engineer whatever number,
Right.
and it might be like a staff engineer in other places. It might be the equivalent. But I think, the for me a solutions architect is really what the name says. It's how do you find a solution for
Yeah.
an organization? And I think it's really this marriage between business and technology.
Exactly.
It is you have to work with business people, you have to work with technology, and it's solving these problems that come up. And what's the best efficient, you know so many factors. We'll talk about non-functional requirements. That's something that a solutions architect is thinking about is the best way to implement solutions for these uh, problems.
Yeah, like we're the communicator, the mediation, whether it's between teams. You have in some circumstances, like you have your infosec, your cybersecurity teams that want everything as safe as possible. Well, I mean, if you unplug it from the wall, then it's as safe as possible,
Yeah,
but it's not going to work. So solutions architecting, I feel like is negotiating that balance in the middle between we want it to work or we want it to do X, but it needs to be safe or it needs to have this in it. And yeah, it's about, hey, here's our problem. We need to find a solution, and you are the person that is going to put on whatever hat you have to put on to make that solution happen, whether it's PM work or coding or engineering or speaking with C-suite. It's all of those things lumped in.
sometimes I wonder, like at In Time Tech, I work as a contractor. I worked for organizations of different sizes, and it feels like some of those titles are specialized. It's really like this DevOps engineer, and they spend all their time
Right.
like in Jenkins doing different workflows from different teams. But other times you have like DevOps engineer that's doing everything, and it's just like, it's the same thing. And I think like for a solutions architect coming in, or whatever engineer, technical person trying to make a product successful for the business.
Right.
And I think like every engineer, every person is doing that. Um, I think, or maybe I should rephrase that. I think every engineer can be doing that and be more productive for the business.
Yeah.
Like I've been surprised when I come into projects as a new person and I ask questions like, how many users are we expecting on this? Because the way that I'm going to design something when there's going to be 100 users and 100,000 users
Right.
is way different. And anyway, sometimes it's been surprising to me when it seems no one else on the engineering team has asked those questions.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like we're the expert question askers sometimes, whether it's an uncomfortable question or even just asking something no one else has asked yet. It's, is this how urgent is this? And one person's priority or urgency could mean something else to another person. So when they say it's high priority, we're trying to figure out, okay, objectively or even metrically, what does that look like? If this product's not built, are you guys losing $100 a day or are you guys losing $1 million a day?
Yeah.
Those are very different things. And trying to figure out, like you said, how many users is this affecting? How many users are going to be using this? And I feel like a lot of the times at the start, they'll almost try to task with, here's the solution that we want you to build. But sometimes you have to almost go back, and before you go too far down the rabbit hole of building out whatever solution it is, going back and, is this actually the right solution?
Yeah.
And instead go back and, what's the problem first?
Yep.
And then we need to evaluate, is that actually the best solution? And we may completely change scope on what we're building.
Yeah. I think about Agile. I've reread the Agile manifesto. It's been a while. It came out 25 years ago, nearly 25 years ago. And anyone watching this, reread the Agile Manifesto. It's so obvious, and I think so many organizations do such a bad job at so many of the things. Um, and uh, a lot of it's really common sense stuff. And I think like there's so many projects that I've been on where, like you were saying, it's hey, here's what we want to do, and that might be good, but unless you can measure, unless you have metrics around it, you go to like one question is like, do we have customers, right? If there's no one willing to test the software you're making, you can't do agile. You can't build a product if there's no one using it. And I feel like I've been on projects like that where it's like, what's the point? And we talk about like customers, talk about users. I think there's like customers that you're selling to, and but a lot of IT projects are also like internal.
Yeah.
There it's like
Your
the
customer is executives and C-suite and directors, and
yeah.
because you're solving either you're improving optimizing efficiency of some internal workflow or process where maybe the solution is not for an external customer, but it's a 30% improvement on efficiency for this team or that team. And, if that saves millions in revenue a year, well, that's that solution that they're looking for is that they know they have an inefficiency or something that can be optimized in their business process, and they just haven't had anyone look at it yet.
Yeah. I think like one of the things that like for a solutions architect coming into like a new project, and I think a lot of our conversation will be talking about maybe some newer projects, but I think these principles can be applied at any stage. And there's probably people listening who are already halfway through a project and these things have never been done. I don't think it's ever too late. Like, it's better to, this is like classic sunk cost fallacy where it's better to like stop halfway through and rethink everything if it truly is catastrophic than it is to finish spending millions of dollars or whatever and having a product that no one wants, no one uses, and you waste more time.
Yeah, 100% agree. That's that minimum viable product and knowing when to stop. It's so yeah. How far are we going to sink into this just for the sake of because we're already on that track?
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff is just getting to minimum viable product first. And hey, is this the right solution? Whether if it's external, is there a market for this? Is this the right market to focus on? Do we need to change gears? Or if it's an internal product, it's how are the users liking it? What is the actual measurable metrics on how this has changed since we implemented the solution? And if it's nowhere near close to what the desired outcome was, if you need to scrap the whole thing and go a different route with it, then that's more efficient in the long run than to just keep using the wrong tool to try and build something.
Yeah. Getting those metrics, I think, is so important. And I don't know if I've really been part of a project that's done it well. Maybe I wanted to say at all. I think I have been part of some that have done it at least a little bit. But as Jordan was saying earlier, it's are you measuring like employee productivity that's using this tool? If it's a customer sales rep that's using it, how many calls are they able to get through a day? How many calls now, are they able to do it? If it's like doing data entry or a form or something, it's, how long does it take them to complete it? How many mistakes are made? Like these are things that you should measure beforehand before you even assign a software engineer to write a single line of code is
Yeah.
you should look at and see where things aren't going right, like
Right.
or where things can be improved, or are your employees happy? Like, I if if you listen to your workforce and you hear what they're complaining about, it's usually pretty easy to pick out those
Right.
problems. Like, oh, I hate using this software. It's so annoying. Half the time it doesn't work, and I have to like redo all this work. Like, I don't think I've been part of an organization where you don't hear stuff like that.
Right. And I feel like that's where it loops back to that what is the problem? Like
Yeah.
actually what is the problem? Not what is the business think the problem is or thinks the solution is. Because if you don't have the data firsthand of looking at the data and then us asking and figuring out what the problem is, they may already have that solution in mind. And we need to ask, is that actually the problem? And is that the actual solution for that problem? Or are we mixing things up? And expectations too is super important, because they may have a solution in mind and we have experience having made a similar solution at another company. And we know that, okay, implementing this is going to cause X or Y, but their actual underlying goal is something totally different. And so I think it's important to ask, what are you expecting this solution to do? Are you expecting it to change this metric? Are you expecting it to change revenue? Or are you trying to save on time to completion and save man-hour cost for a certain team? And trying to find what's underlying is really important before you start sunk cost fallacy going into a project.
Another part, I think, during this initial phase when you're like looking at a project is what is the minimal viable product? You know, what's the MVP? When is something actually we're able to get it in front of someone, and when are we actually done?
Right.
I think the answers I feel like are often simpler than like a technical person coming in. We'll scope maybe the business as well, where there's all of these features. We'll talk about scope creep more, but I feel like scope can blow up so fast. But keeping things simple and slim, I feel like so important, especially when you want to go into like an agile development process. What are your opinions you have about project management that you think most people don't agree with?
I would say that a lot of executives or leadership still hasn't quite come around to a Scrum Master or Agile methodology. And there's still a lot of executives with PMPs or that follow older styles of project management. And it's kind of like trying to use the wrong tool for the job.
There we go. This is where the conversation can go, right?
Okay.
Like, I think I agree partly with you on
Right.
this.
Like you can use an older project management style for one team, but your software engineer team that needs to be able to be like, hey, this is now priority 0. This one just fell to the bottom. That's going to next sprint. Like, I think that's important. And I'm starting to see more companies do Scrum and Agile now. And then I'm also seeing some that are still trying to use like a hammer on a screw.
Yeah.
So
I don't think.
Or micromanagement.
Yeah,
Could
I
be
don't.
Another hot take, but
Well, yeah. Let's get back
depending
there.
who's viewing it.
I don't feel like most. I don't think any organization does agile well, and I think any like Scrum or Sigma 9 or whatever it's called. I'm gonna offend some people here, right? This is the hot take, right? Um, I think when you become too strict with your methodology, that's anti-agile. Like the
Right.
whole point of agile is to change.
Yeah,
And
adapt it to your workflow, your situation, your company, your sector.
yeah, like the project I'm managing right now, we do a simple Kanban because we're not. I'm doing maintenance for a project. We're not having new features come in. We don't need 2-week or 3-weekly sprints because we don't really have stakeholders that are looking at these new features. We release every quarter security updates essentially.
Yeah, your user stories at most are internal users.
Yeah.
Which there may not be anything wrong with that, but yeah, is it what do you need? Yeah, if you want to do Scrum, like when I went through my Scrum Master certification, it was a great course, and they used Miro for the scrums and for using Agile basically. But I remember there was one student in there in that certification class, and I think they must have asked like 20 questions trying to be like, well, how do I use this software in this exact flow that you're teaching for my environment, because like we have this team and well, we're not allowed to do this, or we have to use this software and this is our process. And it's like, you can change it.
Yeah.
It doesn't
You
have
should
to.
change it.
Yeah, you should change it. It shouldn't be this exact same workflow for your environment of, hey, I hope they didn't go back to their company and say, I have my Scrum Master cert. We have to do this now. Let's scrap every process we have. It's a tool in the toolbox. So take that back and say, this works for our company. This would be great. This, however, would not. So we're not going to implement that.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because I think even if you worked at like a purely waterfall company and you took an agile course or whatever, you should not be like, we're switching tomorrow.
Right.
It should be like it's iterative by design. Like you should be like, let's start implementing some things. Like I think one thing core to agile is having a product that actually runs and you can show people. And with waterfall, that might not happen until towards the end. I think like if I was in a pure waterfall project and I wanted to implement agile principles, the first thing I would do is try to get an application that actually runs and I can show people. And I think once it's there, you can start looking at doing a couple more things. But you might finish the course of your project and you know it still might be mostly waterfall. And I think that's okay. That's okay with agile.
Yeah.
I think you don't want to just flip everything on its head.
Yeah. Maybe you don't even get rid of waterfall. Like maybe for that team or that project, waterfall is perfect.
Yeah.
Just because you came back from Scrum Master course, if waterfall applies to that project and it's the best thing for it, you don't have to throw it out. Keep
Yep.
it. But maybe the next time a project comes up and it's something for your engineering team, they're going to develop a new web app or Python script or whatever it is they're making. Now you have another tool in your tool belt. You have Scrum and you have Agile. And you're like, hey, for this project, we've been always putting waterfall on it. Let's not do that this time. Let's talk to our engineers. I mean, because the whole point of Scrum and Agile is executives or project managers are not controlling the speed of the work. It's engineers that know what's on their plate and how fast something takes to make because they have that technical knowledge. They can look at the backlog and say, I'm pulling this task into the sprint this week because that is something I can get done this week, rather than where waterfall, or when you get more into like schedule analyst work with master scheduling and Microsoft Project, you may have people end up on the critical path because they have a bunch of tasks assigned to them and lag times are not where people would prefer them to be. And everyone's just trying to stay off the critical path.
Yep.
But with Agile, it's set by the employees saying, hey, this is my workload. This is what I can handle. And that works for some teams, some products, it may not work.
Yeah. I think that's another point that I wanted to get on is I think so many organizations undervalue their engineers.
Yes.
Where they assign a task to do something and they do the task. And I think good engineers, as we were talking about like solution architect work, they should be thinking about how many users this is actually supporting. What's the actual like business need for this? And because like for at least myself, the amount of times where I've seen like a ticket come in like a story and I'm like, why is this even needed? Like, does this actually do anything? Like, is any customer actually going to use this?
Right.
And I go back to like the business analyst or whatever, and I like ask them, I'm like, who's using this feature? And they're like, oh, I don't know. That's a good question. And they find out it's like, actually, we don't need to do this, or we can push this out, 2 years or whatever,
Yep.
right? And
it was created from one user feedback report out of a 1 million user base.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is the only user that's ever wanted this feature or complained about this one thing. I think that can be pretty bottom priority.
I think, yeah, organizations need to really enable their engineers.
Trusting the employees you hired to triage.
Yeah.
You can't micromanage triaging. If you trust your employees to be able to triage, and sure, there's going to be guidance or there's going to be input from executives that, hey, this is a high priority issue because of this. Because when engineers know the why behind something, it helps them be better at triaging future issues. it helps them know where that component is fitting into the overall larger product. But if you're just giving them the what and not the why, it doesn't enable your team as much as it could.
Yeah. And I think this does go both ways. I um Tech debt is one of those areas where I think business people understand and engineers do not understand. Engineers hate tech debt. It makes it annoying for them to work. They want to get rid of all of it. They
Yeah,
prefer time of improving their tools, but like for a business person, it's they need a product to sell. They need to do
yes.
something. And um, you
There's a
know,
balance.
there's a balance. And I think, once again, it goes both ways. If you need engineers who understand the business to make suggestions, but you also need business leaders who understand engineering to also enforce boundaries. But, like tech debt is like any other debt. You're going to pay interest on it. But, if you can invest in your product, you're willing to pay that interest now because you're making value elsewhere, right? So it's something that business people need to keep in mind and engineers need to keep in mind. And I think solutions architect and other project managers also need to be aware of this and help their engineers understand, hey, I get it. I would rather you, if you were able to, I'd rather you spend 2 weeks doing whatever you need to eliminate this tech debt, but we have a client meeting in 1 week and they want this feature. So I'm sorry, you need to prioritize this feature right now and let's find time to allocate this later, right? If the engineer's not going to have a job if the product doesn't sell. So it's
Yeah.
like there's this balance with tech debt.
And I feel like it's super important what sector you're in too.
Sure.
Like if you're in the GovTech space like I'm in right now and like I've been before, there are certain things where tech debt or even just compliance is absolute priority zero because if you're working say with like law enforcement data, you have CJIS compliance.
Yep.
And if what you have is not staying CJIS compliant, your entire company is basically just gonna house of cards collapse. Your entire user base is gonna come to a complete halt until you're back in CJIS compliance. So like maintaining that's where infosec or security is going to be higher priority in like a GovTech space because security is number one. With you're dealing with CJIS data, and there's super high compliance requirements. Whereas maybe if you're in more of a typical corporate environment where they're making, say, just a SaaS software, but it doesn't have all of those compliance requirements, maybe addressing security tech debt can be a little bit of a lower priority, and instead this new feature that is being requested by everybody that would onboard a whole bunch of new customers, that's more important right now because we don't have to be in compliance with all these different frameworks or anything.
Here's what I think is the difference between like an okay software architect or a solutions architect and a great one is they're able to balance those non-functional requirements, the security, and they're able to address them without slowing down the rest of it. They're able to start from the beginning with security in mind,
Yes.
even if they know that security doesn't come until, phase 3 or whatever.
Right.
And having the entire picture from the beginning is what's really valuable. And being able to get a project going that's going to enable you to meet those eventually instead of having to like refactor everything at some point.
Right. And I agree. That's I think where we come back to what we started with scope, and that's the whole job of solutions architecting is you have your engineering team that thinks they're building this. You have your executives that think they want this solution. And you have all these different teams that are not on the same page or they think they're on the same page. And we kind of come in as the mediator and the communicator between teams, and whether it's getting people on the same page or even changing gears of, again, what is the problem? What are the security requirements? How compliant or how high of a security focus does this solution have to have? And then finding a balance in the middle because maybe their solution or their goal of what they're trying to achieve isn't going to be perfect security because everything's a balance. Like I said, I made that joke about oh, the most secure thing is, yeah, if you unplug it from the wall,
Yeah.
but
Yep.
then you don't have a working product that anyone's going to buy because it doesn't work. It doesn't turn on. So I think finding like that balance from the start, figuring out the scope, asking the right questions is probably the most important thing. And I feel like that's overall what solutions architecting is asking the right questions and setting scope, goals, and the work that needs to be done right out of the gate so that you don't just burn money.
Yeah. What's the minimal team for making a software product for you? Like we've talked about a few roles, like of course solutions architect. We've also talked about how roles can have different number of hats. But like for myself, I've seen projects that don't really have like someone in the business analyst role where it's like you just have engineers building something and no one really knows what they're actually building. Um, and then you have other projects that are heavy on the management and you just have like a few engineers where they're getting like all these requirements, all these stories coming in, and sometimes they're conflicting and they don't, you know, things one person saying, "Hey, this is highest priority," another one saying, "No, this is higher priority." So it's like, I guess for you, what's the ideal team look like to build a product?
We have to almost more define minimum team because my answer probably in a lot of these questions is going to be it depends.
Yep.
And I feel like that sums up solutions architecting in a nutshell. But what size is the company to begin with? Minimum team, and it's a startup with 5 people at it. You may have one full stack developer and it's just him and Claude code until 4 a.m. every day. And that's your minimum team right there. And then you have one salesman who's trying to push it and see if this is minimum viable product. Or if you have 1,000 employees and 200 of them are in technology and you have them split into teams, you have a separate cybersecurity team, you have network engineers, you have software engineers, you have project managers, then that's a lot different resources to work with there. When it comes to the answer for minimum team is really just it depends so much. I feel like lately, and maybe you've noticed this too, I feel like the tech sector in especially the last few years, there's been a huge shift, and this may not even be specific to technology, but it's been very prominent, is putting more hats on less people,
Hmm.
and more people are doing more work than ever before, even in different fields. Maybe instead of having a network engineer team, a cybersecurity team, software engineers, and PMs, they hire one position, and no matter what they call it, they'll probably give it just the title of one of those roles. But you start and you realize you're doing the work of 5 different specialty teams and you're a generalist, and everyone is becoming a generalist nowadays, either because they have to or they want to. But I feel like that's the way the job market is going, is companies think they're looking for a specialist when in reality they're looking for a generalist because they're looking for someone that is specialized in 5 different sectors, and they want to replace 5 teams with one person that can do it all.
Yep.
And that's where that affects minimum team as well. Did you hire someone who's only good at network engineering, or did you hire someone that has the awareness of security practices? They are a scrum master. Maybe they also code Python and they can make web apps. It's like, well, if you really want to, then you could probably have that guy do all 4. He may leave in 6 months, but you could have him do all 4 things.
Yeah. I just remembered, like I said, I have the Agile manifesto in front of me, and I was reading it earlier. The question was not meant to be a gotcha. Now, since I'm like, oh, I have the Agile manifesto, I'm gonna tell you the actual answer. Anyway, it says the best architectures, requirements, and designs emerge from self-organizing teams. And I think that's rare in organizations where you let kind of teams self-organize. I think, one organization that I've heard does it well is like Valve, where Valve makes video games and they have a really flat organization structure, and they just kind of let their employees pick what they work on. Um, the like DevOps movement, like with the DevOps handbook, it suggests to not have um, teams by like domain, but instead of like vertical slices where you might have someone from sales, someone from marketing, someone from engineering, someone from IT, all on one team that supports a specific product. So you have like product teams instead. But I think I think self-organizing makes sense, right? Like it
Yeah.
depends, and you don't want some business leader kind of defining what the team looks like. You want like this a team to form around an idea or around a product instead of a some other arbitrary piece. And I think like if a team feels like they need another engineer, then they can add another engineer. If a team feels like they need someone to sell a product, then they should get someone to sell the product. So I yeah, once again, I think it depends. I feel like teams, at least no team that I've worked on, has had the autonomy to make those decisions. At least I've never been in a level where I've been able to make those decisions, despite being sometimes um the lead on those projects.
I feel like there's a balance. So, because I've worked for Fortune 500 companies where you're wearing 20 different hats, and it is your responsibility to be multiple different teams. You have a lot of autonomy, and you're making all of the decisions of what normally would be segregated into 10 different specialized teams. And that has its pros, but it also has its cons. It's a balance. And I've also been at companies where, because every single task that is slightly scoped differently has a specialized team, like for example, oh, this goes into cybersecurity now. Well, there's so much red tape that it takes so long to get anything done.
Yep.
Because maybe you're trying to fix a ticket as an IT guy, but then all of a sudden it has the slightest scope of cybersecurity to it. So now you're like, oh, I can't change this I can't even access this software that I need or something because only cybersecurity goes in there and does it. So now you're forced to create a ticket with cybersecurity and you have to kick it over to the cybersecurity team. Well, they're backed up, so it's going to take 2 weeks for them to finish it. And then once it's done with them, well, they figured out there's some network changes that need being done. And maybe you know how to do it, but you're not on the network engineering team. So now you have to send it to the network engineer and he'll get that port opened up in a week. So it's all a balance. You're gonna have pros and cons with both. If one guy can do it all, he could probably make that solution happen a lot faster. But is he the best at each of those things, or is he gonna be able to even maintain that workload depending on volume?
Yeah, there's always those considerations. I think one thing that I feel like I often do is I always make a friend in the IT department as like a software engineer because like I want someone who can spin me up a VM or like, do whatever. And I don't have to, maybe I'll put in a ticket to be nice, but I'm messaging them on Teams or Slack or whatever and saying, hey, can you do this for me real quick? And because yeah, otherwise it takes a week or it takes 2 weeks, it's being the bottom of the backlog. But you become friends with these people.
Always make friends with your IT guy.
Yeah, always make friends with the IT guy. Former IT, yeah.
Yeah, like having been IT and then now being more on the implementation engineering side, it's the first thing I did. I'm like, all right, well, I know I'm on more the engineering team, but doesn't hurt to make friends with the IT guy as quick as you can.
Yeah.
And not saying you guys should do that just out of the sake of trying to get an advantage.
Cookies,
be friendly to
whatever.
everybody. Make friends with your whole team. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think like having good relationships among your team is important, and that comes back to like what you said with more of a flat structure. I think some teams, if you give your team autonomy and you hire people that you trust, that you don't even need to micromanage, I think you can have a really, really good company structure and you can have a really, really efficient team. But if you hire people that you don't trust and you feel that you have to micromanage them, well, then you can't really have a self-organizing team. And that started with a hiring issue.
make friends with like everyone that you can. Like I think have a friend in the finance department, have a friend, on the C-suite, have a friend, like wherever, because if you can bypass that 1-2 week lag of trying to work with the department, because you can message Fred from accounting to like get unblocked that day, because it doesn't even take much. You just talk to them at their desk or whatever, or message them and say how, like if you have to work with them one time, you put in that ticket or whatever, then like message them on Slack or Teams or whatever, and like just start a conversation, get to know them, and then the next time you have something, you message them directly. Like I don't think it takes much to
It's
make
not
that
rocket science.
to make that little bit of connection to like speed things up by so much.
Yeah, it's
But
just simple rapport building at the end
yeah,
of the day. Build rapport with people, and they learn if you say, hey, this is a priority, but you're that guy that messages that to everyone just because you're stressed out,
yeah,
people are going to learn it's not actually a priority. But if you build rapport with people and they can tell when you say, hey, this is a priority, or hey, can I get this done, they know that it's probably there's validity to it
yeah,
because you've built rapport with them. They kind of know what is priority, what is not to you. They know you don't overuse phrases and stuff like that. So it's important.
yeah. But my other hot take. So I went to this like local developer get together that had, a few hundred people there from different organizations. And I remember one group was talking about their company, about how they just hated working with their customers. And this is my hot take. You should love working with your customers. Like, um, I find it so weird that like engineers don't directly, at least on some level, work with the people using their software. Like a lot of organizations will put like customer support between the engineers and the customers. I think a certain level of that is good, but I think like engineers need to know how their product's being used.
Yeah.
I This was a couple years ago. I'm sure it's still the same, but I saw a like survey where one of the biggest reasons for software engineer burnout was because they didn't feel like what they were making was actually being used by anyone.
Yeah.
And uh like get to know your customers. Like if there's a support call and you're like talking with customer support rep of like this customer's having an issue, I think it's perfectly fine like as an engineer to suggest getting on a call with the customer if the customer's open to it, and understanding what their problem is. Seeing if they can share their screen. Once again, this might not work for every product, but like if they can share their screen and you can see how they actually like go through the menus and like interact with the software, that's going to be so valuable to you. Like, um, and you might learn is like, oh, hey, this person's doing this thing that takes 10 steps and they have to do it 100 times a day. And I could just add a little button right here
Right.
and they could do it in one step. And yeah, once again, I don't
Yeah.
think it's that much of a hot take when I say it out loud, but I find it so weird where yeah, developers and engineers don't feel annoyed working with their customers, where it's like it should be your motivating factor.
Yeah, I feel like what may be the hotter take argument on that subject would be what the root issue is, because like some companies will hire a sales engineer to see if that basically so that your salesmen aren't selling something saying, hey, this is the solution to your problem, and you need a sales engineer that could be like, hey, no, our product doesn't actually do that. But I would argue that the more important thing is it goes right back to what we were talking about earlier, where it's communication in the company,
Yep.
the why versus the what. If your engineers are only knowing the what they're building, but they don't know why they're building it, they're going to burn out. Like you said, they don't feel involved in the bigger picture with what the company's trying to achieve. They are less invested in the success of the company, the team, their career there, because they're just making the what, but they don't understand the why. And I would argue that you may not even need to have your engineers directly interacting with customers to understand the why. It may just need to be better communication within the company, whether it's product managers or leadership or even scrum masters, whoever it is. If you have good communication between your teams, everybody should be able to answer the why they're doing something at a company. If someone asks like the engineer, hey, why are you building this or working on this, their answer should not be, well, I don't know, I think it's going to plug into this or it's going to add this feature. It's like, you need to know why you're doing something. At least I think that's just humans in general. They want to have purpose and they want to be doing things with a purpose. And if you don't know why you're doing something, you don't have purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. What's your hot take?
The hot take was how every company doesn't have a deep understanding of AI and all the subcategories below it, whether it's language models or multimodal or visual, but they just buzzword AI and they think it needs to be in every single aspect of their company, or they need to make an AI product, or they just want the word AI in every single facet of their company. And every company is trying to implement it right now at every level, every degree, just AI, AI, AI. And I'm like, what do you even mean by that? Like, they're like, I want AI in our finance department. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? Are you saying you want like a language model for your finance department to talk to? Or are you saying that you want some multimodal agent that can autonomously go through your spreadsheets or images of receipts and scan? Like, there's so many different things and they don't even know what they want, but they're like, I know I want AI.
Yeah, no, gosh, we would be here another hour talking about AI. I kind of purposely have not brought it up, but like AI is such a loaded term. I could write a tic-tac-toe bot and that's just a bunch of nested if statements and that's AI, right?
Yeah.
Like another anecdote, my brother works at an AI company, but they're like actual AI, not okay. LLMs are AI, but like he works with like neural nets and
machine
learning and stuff like that. And they added like a little chatbot somewhere just so their salespeople can say, "Oh yeah, we have Chat GDP," or whatever. Like it. I don't think it's definitely not part of their main product, but it's just like they have people asking, "Oh, does this have Chat GPT stuff or whatever?" And it's like now they can say yes, but.
And I feel like that's a new landscape now that in solutions architecting, it kind of all ties back together though, because I know we didn't, like you said, you didn't want to dive too much into AI, but like we can't ignore it either. It's because executives are wanting that buzzword in every single part of the company. It's kind of our job now to figure out what exactly they want and then what fits that, what will actually be the solution for it, because they say they want AI and it's like, all right, well, are you just wanting, is it because, what's the why? Is it because you're trying to improve the efficiency of your finance team? Okay, well, what would improve the efficiency? Like get AI out of your head for a second. Just think about what would improve the efficiency. Oh, well, they keep having to reference deep into the knowledge base articles for specific tasks, and it takes them forever to go through knowledge base articles. Okay, well, you probably could create a language model, even if you run it local and you do a local language model that has access to your knowledge base and it's offline and you're not even paying for Chat GPT subscriptions. You have it running on your local server that's on-prem or something.
And at this point, the CEO has like spaced out and like, okay, never mind.
Right. And that's where it's like you're converting technical talk to, okay, how do you explain this to executives that they don't even care about the nitty-gritty either? It's just you need to take what they say, translate it internally to where the gears are already turning of what is this actually going to look like? And that's where we're figuring out what the solution is to what they want solved, and then giving that to the right team.
I think like we've talked about like enabling engineers. I think like when executives can enable like their architects to say no to things, like you did such a good diplomatic approach of saying no to the CEO of we're not going to add AI to like the finance thing or whatever, like we, but like some great engineers that I've seen are very effective at just saying no, it won't work because of this.
Right.
And it's and like you hired me to this position so I can tell you the facts.
Yeah.
And it's like and I think like there is the middle ground, of course, like you should work with the business leaders to see if like, oh, is there actually something there, but kind of laying it out of saying if we did do this, it would take 5 engineers, 1 year, and we'd have to, like these are all the costs associated with it. Like, this is all back to the original, like how do you kind of scope this stuff?
Right.
And it feels easy, might be easy to think, oh, we'll just add AI to that and it'll be so much easier. But like AI has so many hidden costs that I think a lot of organizations aren't really looking at. Where, if it's something internal, there's, you have to run a server, you have to, you know,
Right.
even like the salary of the engineering cost of like having someone maintain that. I was talking to like another friend, um, who was saying that they implemented like a in-house coding assistant, and they had an engineer working on it for like 3 months because they worked with, they also in the gov space, and they couldn't use like ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot or any of those other tools, so they did it all in-house, their own coding assistant, and spent all this time having someone maintain it, and no one uses it. None of their engineers use it because it's not good.
Yeah.
Because it's just not there yet. Maybe some of the external ones that use larger models or whatever are effective. You know, I'm still a skeptic there as like an engineer, but like as
And then
said,
there's the whole data portion of it too.
yeah,
Like
like
if you're running a local one where you're keeping your data in-house, or are you gonna pay an external company, like say ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or any of those, are you gonna pay a fee that says, hey, please don't
yeah,
gather and sell my data, and now you're paying those costs, but also, yeah, like you said, I feel like a lot of them, I feel like a lot of people in general, when they say AI now, the only thing that comes to their head is the ChatGPT language model.
yep,
Like that's it. But really that's like less than 1% of what AI really is and what is going on in the background and being developed right now and what it encompasses. So maybe an executive used ChatGPT at home or something, and they said this was the coolest thing ever. I need to find a way to get this into our company. But it's like, really, that may not even be what you want. Instead, you want to use something that can maybe what you need is image generation for your marketing team
yeah.
or something like that. It could be something totally different, or machine learning. And that's where, like, if you go into like more the finance space, like fintech and stuff, and they already have like algorithms and trading bots and stuff for stock markets. Well, I'm sure they've been doing machine learning for a long time now, probably before ChatGPT even became a thing, and everyone thinks they're the first one to come up with the idea of, oh, I'm gonna ask ChatGPT how to make $1 million with trading. And so I think that's where it's important to figure out, yeah, what exactly do you want solved, and then we'll figure out if AI applies and which scope of it applies.
Here's another hot take from me. I think it's totally okay for the engineering team to have preferences just because it's cool or new. Like, and I think we see AI coming into companies because the CEO talks about it. They're talking to like their solutions architect or whatever, and they're like, you know what? I don't know if it'll be, like it's new enough where they're like, I don't know if it'll be good or useful, but that sounds like a cool project, and I want to work on it.
Yeah.
And then you have these AI projects that kind of spin up and don't go anywhere because maybe they're not actually useful for the use case, but you have technical people who are just like, I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. Like you said, knowing when to say no, but they don't want to because they're like, oh, if I wanted to try this in my own personal off time, I don't want to pay for those API tokens,
Yep.
or I don't want to pay the fees to try this feature, but my company wants to implement it. I get to learn and play around with it and use it on company dime. And that's where, yeah, it's important to not only be able to say no, but maybe even have some self-control of saying no because you want to work on it for personal reasons rather than this is the best for the company, which is who's paying me.
I think there is often in this case, with AI being new specifically, I think there's a lot of unknowns there, right? And I
Right.
think developing a prototype to actually see if it is beneficial, I think has probably been appropriate in a lot of cases, with it being so new. I I think yeah, a good architect will probably know when to say we're done. This is not beneficial. Let's pull resources off of it and let's stop doing this. And it might be like, let's revisit this 5 years from now when, technology in the space has advanced a little bit more.
A lot
Um,
of sectors even are just like that inherently.
yeah.
Like when it comes to government space, pretty much anytime there's a new significant development in a technology, I believe it usually like 5 years lag time, or 5 to 10 years is usually when it'll start making its way into government implementation.
Yeah.
And they're never the first to hop on board with something. It's going to be like a tech company or something like that. So there's always like that inherent lag already. But like you said, it's good to be able to identify it at the company you're at too, and be able to tell them, hey, we don't have to be the first one to adopt this, because with every decision there's risk.
Once again, I think it's valid. I think when you make, like, as an architect, technical decisions on, like, preference of what's cool, what's new, that your engineers might have, I think it's valid to choose something that way. Like, maybe you've never done, like, a microservices architecture, but, like, your engineers are excited about working on that. Um, we can get into my thoughts about microservices. They're not all positive, but not the point. Um, but, like, as an example, like, one of the previous projects I was on, we were developing, an API gateway in Python, and I was working on it for a little bit, and I asked, like, "Why are we using Python? Everything else we're using Ruby on Rails." I know Ruby on Rails is less cool now, like, I get that.
Don't forget about Rust.
Yeah.
Rust is the new hype.
Yeah, I'm like, "Why are we doing it in Python?" It's like, "Does anyone on this team know Python?" It's like, "No." It's like, "Well, who suggested it?" It's like, "Oh, this person, but they're no longer with the organization." I was like, "Okay."
And then how did that person suggest it? They're like, ChatGPT told me to.
Yeah, exactly. It was like,
It
"Oh,
told me
yeah." It was like,
Python would
"Oh,
be
it was
best.
this kind of newer thing. It seemed easier." It's just like some person, no longer the company, was just like, let's do it in this one." It's just like, now there's this new framework that no one at the organization knows, and it's just like, is that a good idea? But at the same point, like, I think I I came on from another project onto that one. There was already like a couple months of development. It was a relatively small API gateway, and it's just like it didn't make sense to start over at that point. It's just like it's easier to train engineers. Ruby, Python. Python's easy enough. Like no one's gonna have that much. Well documented framework. Like people are gonna have an okay time. I still think the correct choice, even if people don't like everyone in the organization did not really like Ruby. It was just what they had. But it's just like I think the correct choice was probably would have just been Ruby for something that we were doing. Ruby on Rails, right? Just because everyone knew it already. Like
Yeah.
don't
Yeah, if your whole dev team is used to Ruby, if you start making Python stuff, you're gonna at least have to hire at least one Python engineer
right.
or developer.
Or you're gonna have to cross train. That's expensive. It takes time.
Or
I'm
all your
I'm
code's gonna be generated by language
yeah,
models.
all your codes. That's really what happened. I think probably half of it was just generated by ChatGPT or whatever. But I think if you're gonna do that, Python's probably the right language to use. Python's usually better in that way. But I'm contradicting my point. I think it is actually okay for engineers to choose things based on what they want to do, because you want your
Yeah.
engineers excited for what they're working on. You want them to you know understand new things. I don't think it's not good for a business. Like if I was maintaining a service written in like HTML and PHP, like I would encourage my engineers to build new services in different frameworks.
Yeah. Self
Um,
development, I think, is just huge in general.
yeah,
Investing that into employees, and then also employees investing into it themselves. So, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are like this in tech, where you get off work and I understand both sides of it. Some people, they get off work and I think they want to retreat into the forest and not touch technology. I understand that side.
oh yeah,
And then there's also the other side where you get off work and you have a home lab or home server set up and you're running like N8N on it and local language models, and you have just a whole like home lab set up, and it may be also because you enjoy it, but it's also self-development. It's keeping your skills sharp, you're learning new skills, and you're doing these things to keep yourself relevant, because tech changes so fast that I feel like if you don't invest hours into yourself, especially if the company won't, If the company won't invest into your self-development, if you don't do it yourself, I feel like you can quickly become obsolete. And like you mentioned with letting engineers have some say in what technology gets used, I do agree that there's validity there in, say, for example, the language model landscape right now with like the leadership board really of like which one's winning. You know, they're all in a pretty much an arms race right now, all of your large companies. Well, today maybe ChatGPT Codex helps the engineers write good, clean code the best. But next month, Claude Code is the best coding agent in your IDEs. So having your engineers be like, hey, we're going to switch to Claude Code right now because we're seeing way better results. We're seeing less hallucination. You need to trust your engineers to be able to tweak and change the technology you're using or paying for because they're probably the subject matter experts on it.
Just because you have perfect code does not mean a product is going to be successful.
Right.
There's so many factors, and I think that's another difficult thing that solutions architects need to keep in mind is you could have a really good engineering team, you could have a really good business team, you could have a really good marketing team, but for whatever reason, the product just did not come at the right time, or maybe a larger organization came up and released a direct competitor to what you're doing, right before you did. And, it's like there's so many factors that
You have to test the markets.
you
You
have
have to reach market viability quick with an MVP
Yep.
and test it. And then, like you said, with business, you could just get the timing wrong.
Yeah.
Like you didn't do anything wrong. You had a marketable product. There was marketability for it, but you were off by a year.
Yep.
And that's where, like we were talking about with how some spaces lag behind by 5 years. If you approach government spaces with a new technology, well, right now, it could have been a winning product. It was, but maybe you approached government agencies 3 years too soon, and they're like, "No, we're not touching a new thing like that. No interest in it." And then 3 years pass, and they go, "Okay, yeah, we want to implement that now into our space."
Well, thanks for joining me today. I have a couple questions I like asking all the guests at the end. Um, what what worries you about the world, technology, etc., and then what excites you? So let's start with the first one. What worries you that's going on in the world? It can be related to technology, maybe encouraged. It doesn't have to be.
What worries me right now, and whether it stems from my ignorance on the subject or subjects, or whether it's valid about some things and not others, probably the same as a lot of other people's right now, is how AI as a whole is disrupting or making changes on jobs, economy, things like that. Um, I know that some of the biggest tech leaders have almost such a, I feel like a very concerning or shattering view on what they expect the next 8 years to look like, that some people may say that looks awesome. Like maybe their goal is, we want to just eliminate 100% of jobs and have like a universal income from the tax of the 5 biggest AI companies or something. Some people may think that sounds awesome. To other people like myself, I'm like, that sounds really scary. And
Yep.
I mean, you figure the whole time that the job market, even with that principle, if the whole job market is slowly going towards 100% of jobs don't exist anymore, everybody's going to just try to be the last one out that's locking the door behind them. What happens to the economy until you reach 100% of jobs being gone? And maybe that's a year from now, that'll date my speech, and a year from now it'll be like, oh yeah, that was never, not even heading that direction, didn't happen. But I feel like right now we're in an arms race with this technology, and the advancements being made are just such huge leaps, I feel like every week, that nobody really knows what the next 8 years, I think, is going to look like. And I think just that unknown is a bit worrying to me.
On that note, I bring this up with a lot of the guesses. I think AI and like the disinformation that comes with it.
Yeah.
Like especially now, I think recently, just for some context, listeners, it's January 2026 right now. But I think like in the last few months, especially like image and video generation from AI,
That is very
video is
concerning.
not maybe quite there yet. I think most people, most people around my age, maybe an older generation or two, might miss it. But I think videos are pretty clearly AI for me. But at the same time, they're
Every week
a
they're
lot
getting,
more
yeah,
believable. Like there's definitely some AI video clips, especially if they're just people in front of a camera talking, where I could not tell the difference.
right. And we're reaching that too.
Yeah. And then yeah, image generation as well, where I think like image generation now is near flawless, and maybe I'm gonna date myself, and like I think it will keep getting better, but like it's easy to get tricked.
Yeah.
And
It's going to be very, very hard to trust anything.
I
I
don't
think is a point we're going to reach. Like,
I don't trust anything on the internet until I
right.
find a
And what's scary is there's a lot of people that do.
yeah.
Majority of people, I would even argue, do just trust everything they see or read. And I could even see reaching a point where if AI does replace a good amount of jobs, it almost more creates positions where the entire position is just taking liability and accountability for that position. Like the base
Yeah.
job is now being done by some AI agent or something like that, no matter the job. But there needs to be a human behind it that's signing off on it, saying, yes, I take liability for what it did. Someone needs to be able to be held legally accountable. And
It
I'm afraid a lot of
I don't
jobs are
know
going
if
to turn
you
into that.
I don't know if you've seen this, but like Intel as one of this was like I think in the 70s or something, where they had one as their core principles that computers cannot make business decisions because they cannot be held accountable. I'm paraphrasing a little bit there, I'm sure, but you know, um, I I think you're right, where like there are decisions being made that are mostly made by computers, and how do you have them accountable? Like
Yeah.
you can't.
And
So
I
it's
feel
like
like
you need
businesses may
someone.
already be starting to have that pop up on their radar as they've been replacing more of their workforce with AI in whatever degree.
Yeah.
They're starting to realize, oh, who do we hold accountable for this decision or this action, or oh, this code just pretty much ruined our whole code base. And it's like, oh, well, who do we hold accountable for that?
Yeah. Okay. We could probably doom and gloom all day about AI.
Yeah.
What excites you? What are you optimistic about? What do you think is going on well?
So maybe it's a cliche to just say that my answer is the same, but I would say that the unknown about it is also almost just as exciting.
Yeah.
Because I think about how much it's helped me just in the limited use that I'm using it. Because like we've talked about, like language models are just this tiny fragment of the umbrella of AI, what it is. But even just using some of the very publicly available language models and things like that, the type of learner that I am, I learn very much by asking tons of questions and by doing. So a lot of my knowledge in technology and even just the work that I do, I learned it by self-teaching through projects. So say, for example, if it's a home server project and I want to make an N8N automation that does X or Y, I didn't go watch like a YouTube video or read like a how-to article. I had a very specific goal in mind. If I want to do this, and whether it's 100 Google searches or 200 back and forth messages with a language model, every time I hit an error, hey, I have this error. What causes that? And then now I kind of know this is what caused that error. And I do that all the way until I finish the project. Well, now I know how to make this. And I feel like that's expedited how fast that I learn and do things in general. Because now instead of 100 Google searches and you're deep in Stack Exchange forums and
Yep.
and all these forum boards trying to filter through people arguing on a forum board to get an answer for why this error is popping up. It's a way to learn and to chat with something that has, at the end of the day, access to a lot of resources, access to a lot of knowledge in a way that's completely free of judgment, and you feel comfortable using it to learn.
Yeah.
And then I think seeing how fast these advancements are coming does really excite me, because I remember when ChatGPT just started even becoming popular, how it was cool to just kind of see it work and ask it questions, and that was blowing everyone's mind.
Yeah.
And then now look, not even long later, now we're talking about video generation,
Yeah.
image generation, machine learning, and just seeing it advance that fast is both scary, but it also excites me because I don't know what the future holds. And all you can really do is just be mindful in the moment, use it to the best of your abilities and your advantage, rather than ignore it and refuse to use it. Get what you can out of it.
Yeah.
And use it just like everyone else is.
I think like I mentioned this before, right? It's just like you might look at some stuff and be like, it's not there yet. Like it doesn't fit the needs of our organization. It's not powerful enough. It's not gonna make a big difference. But I think it's definitely wrong to be like, write it off entirely.
I agree.
It is here to stay. I think it's gonna be a lot like the .com bubble, right? Where there's a lot of it that has a lot of value assigned that's actually not useful. But to say that the internet, like if I go back to 2000 or 1999 or whatever, and I said, oh, the internet's not going to be around for much longer, like because
Right.
I saw, like I think that's obviously so incorrect. So like I think AI is a lot like that. There's a lot of advancements in like coding and stuff also, where it's just like going from like punch cards to memory on the computer, like
Yeah.
that was a big leap in making things a lot easier. Or like going from learning how to code out of a book to
Right.
being able to read documentation, or go to Stack Overflow or something. Also another huge jump, right? Like technology advances,
Right.
and
You can either become obsolete and refuse it entirely,
yeah,
or what I think like you said, I agree completely. I think it's not going to just completely disappear. It's a technology advancement, and that's what we as humans do, is we try to advance. But I do think there's going to be a correction. I
yeah,
think just like with .com or with any of these bubbles, you're going to have an over implementation of it just because of hype. And then I think we'll see a correction and a bit of a pullback on, okay, here's what it's actually good for. Don't use it in these circumstances right now. It's not ready yet. Use it here. That's where it's good.
yeah,
And I think it's here to stay. It's just finding where.
yeah. And who knows? In 8 years, AGI happens and everyone's jobs are replaced. Then
Yeah,
I,
next year you have me on this podcast, and I'm actually not here. You just generated the
yeah,
video kind of
exactly.
thing. So
Yeah, we'll see what happens there. I don't, my opinion, I don't think we're gonna see AGI in the next 15 to 20 years. I think it's still a while away. I think maybe people can correct me if I'm wrong. I just don't think LLMs are never gonna reach AGI. It's not the right kind of AI. But I know that there's a lot of really smart AI researchers that are using more than just LLMs to
Right.
get us there.
Yeah.
So, and, maybe I have not read a lot more about what's going on in those areas of research. So, maybe it's closer than I think. But
Yeah, and full disclaimer for me, I'm nowhere near a subject matter
yeah,
expert
no,
in AI. I know that my knowledge is probably less than 1% of all the aspects of the umbrella of AI and what it can do. I'm
cool.
not a data scientist or
Yeah,
anything. So
no, yeah, same here. Well, thanks all. I hope our hot takes in the quotes weren't too spicy for you all. Thanks Jordan for coming on and
thank you
having
for
this
having me.
conversation. Yeah.
It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I appreciated being here. Thank you.
Thanks for watching this In Time Tech podcast. If you'd like to learn more about what we can offer you, please visit our website, intimetech.com, where you'll be able to see the different capabilities and technologies we could provide you in your business. Also, don't forget to subscribe and follow us to get more amazing content like this. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.